What if the scariest villain in Star Wars was really just a sad guy with asthma and commitment issues? I mean, really think about it. All that black armor, the dramatic cape, the voice deeper than a sarlacc pit, and underneath it all, a burned-up Jedi with too many regrets and a full-blown identity crisis. Darth Vader wasn't born. He was built. Out of pain, fear, and some truly questionable life choices. We remember the hallway scenes, the force chokes, the way entire rooms go silent when he enters. But the more you look at him, the more you realize the mask wasn't for intimidation. It was for hiding. Because behind that metal grill was a guy who once cracked jokes, loved his wife, and hated sand, just like the rest of us, honestly. Vader's the galaxy's most terrifying overthinker with a lightsaber. He wasn't evil for the sake of it. He was a man who thought he had no way out. A hero turned war criminal turned intergalactic boogeyman. Not because he loved power, but because he was terrified of losing everything again. And that's the thing. He didn't fall into darkness like a comic book villain. He clawed his way into it, hoping to save the people he loved, and ended up losing all of them. And yet, we never stop to see the man behind the myth. We just hear the breathing, see the red blade, and forget that Anakin Skywalker didn't disappear overnight. He faded, buried beneath armor and failure and a boss who literally shot lightning at interns. Vader wasn't born in that lava. He died there, and everything after was just survival, the worst kind. The tragedy isn't that he turned, it's that he stayed, that he kept obeying, kept killing, because the guilt convinced him he didn't deserve anything better, and the galaxy bought the lie, called him a monster, when in truth, he was just a man who forgot how to be human, until his son reminded him what it felt like. In this video, we're pulling back the mask and diving headfirst into the pain, the anger, and the humanity of Darth Vader. We'll explore why he fell, what kept him trapped, and how love, not war, not power, not fear finally broke the cycle. So grab your cloaks, brace for some heartbreak, and let's talk about the man who died a legend, but lived as a ghost. What if Darth Vader had never worn the mask? What if we had seen more of the man beneath it, not just at the end, but all the way through? The fear, the regret, the stubborn desperation hiding behind the cold metal. Everyone sees the villain, but how often do we really talk about the shattered Jedi behind him? Strange, because the galaxy feared Vader like he was this mythical death machine, but the guy inside was just Anakin Skywalker, a former slave turned war hero who lost everything except his loyalty to a master who exploited him. His story isn't about domination. It's about losing yourself so completely. You forget you ever had a soul to begin with. Think back to the Clone Wars. Anakin's hair is messy, his quips are fast, and his lightsaber skills are top tier. But even then, there are cracks. He's impulsive, suspicious, too protective of Padme, and every time he wins a battle, he loses a little more of who he was, until all that's left is a guy with too much power and no idea what to do with it. Even his voice changes. Not just James Earl Jones booming through the helmet, but the real voice, the tone, the energy. It's wild how different he sounds when he's Anakin. Hopeful, cocky, raw. And then later, that same man becomes a breathing sound effect with a murder problem. Something got buried in that transformation. Something deeply human. So let's dig into that. Let's peel off the layers of fear, armor, and theatrics. Let's stop seeing Darth Vader as a horror movie villain and start seeing him as a man who didn't know how to stop falling. Because once you strip away the myth, the real tragedy finally comes into focus. Let's just say it didn't have to go this way. Anakin didn't have to become Darth Vader. And yet somehow, everyone around him helped him get there. The Jedi Council treated him like a ticking time bomb. Palpatine groomed him like a creepy space grandpa. And Obi-Wan, his so-called brother, basically alternated between enabling and scolding him. You ever try being the chosen one when your mentors can't decide if you're a prodigy or a threat? The Jedi kept him at arm's length, denied him master status, and then sent him on top-secret spy missions like he was some force-powered intern. No wonder he cracked. The dude got more mixed signals than a Sith Tinder profile. And don't even get me started on the Jedi Code. No attachments, no emotions, no expressions of love or fear. Meanwhile, the galaxy is literally on fire, and Anakin's supposed to just meditate about it. They expected robotic obedience from a guy who ran on adrenaline and raw emotion. That's not mentorship. That's sabotage. There's something deeply sad about Darth Vader. Not the fear he inspired, but the loneliness he endured. The galaxy saw him as a weapon, but he saw himself as a failure. Every breath through that mask was a reminder of what he lost, of who he used to be, and who he could never be again. He didn't just lose Padme, he lost the future they dreamed of together. He lost the chance to raise his children, to grow old, to laugh again. Vader wasn't just haunted by her death, he was consumed by the idea that it was his fault, and it was. But the deeper tragedy is, he never stopped loving her. You can see it in the way he reacts to Luke. That hesitation, that curiosity, that spark of something buried. Luke wasn't just a threat, he was a chance. A ghost of the life Anakin could have had. And it wrecked him, because no matter how far he fell, he never stopped being a father. Even if he didn't know how to act like one. And for years, he just obeyed. Not because he believed in the Empire, but because he believed he had no choice. The man who once challenged the Council, who dove headfirst into danger to protect his friends, became a silent enforcer. A shadow in Palpatine's service, because pain made him forget how to say no. It's heartbreaking, because you realize that Vader's greatest strength, his power, was also the prison he built for himself. He thought it was too late, too far gone, too broken to be fixed. So he stopped trying. He let the galaxy hate him, because he hated himself even more. But even through all that pain, all that anger, there's something undeniably powerful about Anakin's story. Not because he was strong, but because he was human. And few characters in fiction have ever carried that kind of weight, that blend of myth and mess, of glory and ruin. Vader wasn't just a villain, he was a symbol, a man who embodied both the best and worst of the Jedi. He was a war hero who became a war criminal, a father who became a monster, and yet, somehow, still had something left inside him worth saving. That kind of duality is rare, and it hits hard. Every time he steps into frame, the mood changes. Not just because of the sound design or the cape, but because you feel the gravity. The story stops being about rebels and empires, and starts being about one man. And what happens when you believe there's no turning back? And then, when he finally does turn back, when he chooses love over power, it's not just redemption, it's resurrection. It's the moment the legend shatters, and we're left with just a dying man trying to make peace with his son. With his past, with himself. That's not spectacle. That's storytelling at its most profound. And that's the core of it. That's why Vader's story still matters, because it tells us no one is beyond saving. No matter how far you fall, no matter how deep the scars go, there's always a way back. It might not be easy, it might not be clean, but it's never impossible. Luke didn't save Vader with a lightsaber. He saved him with compassion, with belief, with the stubborn, ridiculous idea that his father was still in there somewhere. And guess what? He was. That one moment of love was stronger than years of hatred. That's the power of choosing to see the person instead of the mask. And when Vader finally turns on Palpatine, it's not just a plot twist, it's a decision rooted in everything he lost. He saw what he became, and for the first time, he rejected it. He didn't just kill the Emperor. He killed the lie that he was unworthy of love, of forgiveness, of peace. That one act didn't fix everything, but it meant everything. Because it proved that even the worst mistakes don't have to define us forever. That redemption isn't about erasing your past. It's about facing it and deciding to be better anyway. Even if it's only for a moment. And if Anakin Skywalker Darth freaking Vader could do that, then maybe, just maybe, there's hope for the rest of us too. Because being human isn't about never falling. It's about getting up when it matters most. But even redemption has a cost. Anakin doesn't get a happy ending. He doesn't reunite with Padma, or raise Luke and Leia, or live long enough to see the Empire fall. He dies in his son's arms, not as a hero, not as a Jedi, but simply as a man who tried to make things right. One last time, and that's the tragedy. Vader's mask was never just armor. It was a grave, a symbol of everything he buried to survive. His name, his hope, his identity. The moment he took it off, he wasn't just dying. He was letting Anakin live again. For the first time in decades, the galaxy remembers him as a monster. And maybe that's fair, but we know better. We know the truth behind the myth. That Darth Vader was terrifying, but Anakin Skywalker was heart-wrenchingly human. And in the end, that's the story worth telling. It's not about excusing what he did. It's about understanding why he did it. The fear, the grief, the desperation that made him forget who he was, and the flicker of love that helped him remember it. Even if only at the very end. So when we think of Vader, maybe we shouldn't just see the monster. Maybe we should remember the man who wore the mask, and the choice he made to finally take it off. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please consider looking at my pinned comment and checking out the links for my Amazon storefront. It contains my favorite Legos, my gear in which I make videos, and comics that I read on a daily basis. I update it constantly, so please, take a moment and click on the link. On top of that, check out my second channel, Critical Analysis Hub Plus, and my third channel, Critical Analysis Hub XP. Just one click would go on a long way in supporting my channels and future in YouTube.